Hello and welcome to my podcast. This is my first ever episode of my podcast. I'm still working on the name. It's going to be something around Rachel's Race Ramblings. Not quite sure how exactly it will work out, but something along those lines. Very excited to have you all here. In this video, I'm going to be doing an overview of the 2024 season. I shouldn't say overview. We're doing my faves and least faves. We're talking about my favorite drivers, favorite races, favorite moments, and the negatives of all those, my least favorites. Just a little background about me before we get into it. I am unfortunately a Drive to Survive fan. I know, I'm sorry. I live in Toronto. I'm not really sure how else I was meant to be exposed to it. Don't judge me. But I fell in love with it. First season I watched was 2022. Been watching ever since. I've also really fallen in love with IndyCar, so this podcast will do some IndyCar and F1 content. I dabble in other series as well, but IndyCar and F1 is what I watch every single race and every single qualifying session of. I'm also a big tennis fan. Very fun for me to watch. Never played before, would love to learn how to play. Unfortunately, I have given myself tennis elbow by knitting too much. So I haven't quite gotten to learn tennis yet. I also got into tennis from the Breakpoint docuseries. Same producers as Drive to Survive. Obviously, there's a pattern for me. Though I did watch the Polo series. I haven't finished it. Not fun. Kind of boring. Not as fun as I thought it would be. Sorry. I also love soccer, European soccer, football. I'm a big Arsenal fan. That's a recent development as well. Watched the Euros this summer and I was like, yeah, this is fun. And I recognized the most people from Arsenal and now I'm a diehard Arsenal fan. So I might touch on some of those things as well occasionally, but this will be predominantly a racing and F1 and IndyCar podcast. So without further ado, let's get into my faves and least faves of some of these things of the 2024 F1 season. Oh, my apologies. I said faves and least faves of all of this. I did not choose favorite. I tried to go a bit slightly more objective, even though this is all subjective. I went with best and worst. So let's get started with best driver. I had to go with Max Verstappen. I do think we have to give credit to him for still winning the Drivers' Championship, considering how his season went. Yes, it started off pretty well, but the drop-off of Red Bull was obviously pretty extreme. I'm still not convinced that Checo became a worse driver. I think the car just severely dropped off and Max Verstappen was the only one who could remotely handle the car, which seemed to have been the case regardless. The Red Bull just seems like a difficult car to drive, period. Part of that was because it was very fast, but not so much anymore. Now, I'm not always a fan of his driving style. I feel like he was a bit too aggressive in his racing, but you got to give it to him if it's within the rules, which at the time it seemed to have been new race director, and those harsh penalties at the end of the season may indicate that changing. But everything he did was legal when he did it, so like, why wouldn't you do it? I think if you're somebody who's going to win a championship, and obviously he has won 4 now, that's the mindset you have to have. And I'll say this season, sort of back to the car, this season really convinced me of his talent. Not to think that I ever thought he wasn't talented. Like, you have to be talented to win a driver's championship. But seeing the decrease in the quality of the car, it's like 100% on me now, of course, that he is a very talented driver, like, duh. But, you know, before there was always a bit of a question of how much of it is a car versus how much of it is a driver. And it's obvious to me now that you still have to be a great driver to handle a fast car, or to make a car fast that's not necessarily fast. This one was pretty clear to me just because I don't even have a close second of who else I think could be the best driver. Part of me wants to say Charles, but I don't think he was aggressive enough this season, and I don't mean that in a negative way that he should have changed anything. I just don't think this was the season for him to necessarily showcase his talent. A biased part of me wants to say Lewis, but the 2 race wins weren't enough, and it's pretty clear towards the end of the season he's just kind of over his stint at Mercedes and preserving his energy for Ferrari, which I 100% support. And it could have been Lando, but I mean, you got to give him props. This was his first season really challenging for anything, and I think he did well considering that. But he just didn't quite have champion mentality. I'm saying that in air quotes if you're just listening to this, whatever that means. There's just something missing, but I'm giving him the year, this coming season, 2025, to prove it, and I think he will. Worst driver, don't really want to do that because I think that's mean. I think the obvious answer that I'll just say, because like whatever, is Logan Sargent And I say that because he left. He got dropped mid-season. Like, I don't even want to harp on that because it's just not nice. Best team, I'm going to have to go with McLaren. I know, drivers champion and constructors champion are who I think is the best. Like, so revolutionary. But to see where they went from the start of 2023 to where they are now is like actually astounding. They've obviously built what is consistently the best car, not always. And despite all their stupid papaya rules and their seemingly inability to like make decisions about who should be in front, like to make decisions to interfere, and then when they do interfere, you're like, I don't understand why you do that. That could use some work, I think, but it's always going to be a challenge when there's not necessarily a clear number one driver. Just because Lando was ahead this season doesn't mean he's always going to be. I don't think Oscar is somebody to discredit. And unless you literally have a Max Verstappen in the car, you're not going to, like, there's always going to be a battle. Even Nico Rosberg won a championship while he was teammates with Lewis Hamilton. Like, there's always room for a battle. And I don't think that's something that's ever easy to manage. And it obviously worked out for them in the end. They've won the Constructors' Championship. I don't believe the points Lando ever lost from giving up a spot to Oscar was enough for him to win the Drivers' Championship. So in the end, it all worked out. Had Lando lost the Drivers' Championship because of points he had given up, like in Hungary, for example, I maybe would have said that. I wouldn't have said they're the best team because like that's just kind of egregious. But I'm letting it slide because it all worked out in the end. I also do want to say I respect their seeming, I'm going to say loyalty, and Daniel Ricciardo fans are going to laugh at me. They seem to have wanted to do right by both of their drivers this year. Again, I don't know if that's always, like at a certain point you're going to kind of have to choose, unless you're literally Mercedes in 2016. And like you're going to win the championship regardless, both of them. But like how often is that? At some point you're going to have to choose, so that loyalty can get in the way, and very well could have this year. But just Ferrari wasn't there quite often enough to do it for me. Red Bull, for many obvious reasons, could not be the best team. And Mercedes, I mean, how could you beat the best team when your driver is like Lewis Hamilton is fully checked out, which again, fair, fully get it, but like, come on. Worst team, feels mean, but it's less personal than worst driver, so I'm gonna do it. I have to go with Sauber. Oh my god, I feel bad for the drivers of Sauber, like Zhou and Valtteri. I actually feel horrible for. I think it's, well, Valtteri is now the reserve for Mercedes, which is good, but I feel like this has kind of ruined their careers. Not necessarily that I felt either of them would have gotten a seat outside of Sauber, but like maybe. But I mean, there's a reason why Carlos Sainz didn't choose to sign with Sauber as they become Audi. Like, so bad. I think they ended on literally 0 points. Let me double check that. Oh, 4 points in Qatar. Okay, but like literally you got 4 points. Not good. Not good. It's like I don't even know what's wrong. Is the car just that bad? I guess it is. I felt like I never even saw them on my TV, so I don't feel like I have anything to say. Like, I don't know if, I can't even remember if strategy went bad. I can't remember if it was literally the car. Like, it seemed like everything was just bad and we weren't even seeing them on TV, and it was just like atrocious. Like, so that's my worst team of the year. Who else could I have? I don't want to say Williams because I feel like they're on an upwards trajectory. Sauber, it feels like they've just kind of given up until Audi comes here, and that's not how it should be. Favorite Grand Prix / best Grand Prix. This one was actually very hard for me. I feel like what I love F1 is the feeling you get, and I felt like I felt that feeling a lot. I didn't always feel it the entirety of a race. There was always like good points and some boring sections, obviously. And so this was hard because I felt like I felt the love of F1 often. I'm gonna go with my runner-ups before I go to my favorite. My first runner-up is the Australian GP. I actually did not watch that one live. I thought it's coming on at 1 a.m. It won't end until like 3 or 4 a.m. And Max Verstappen's just gonna win again. Why am I gonna watch? Oh, what a shock I woke up to. Oh, I didn't have it spoiled for me. I watched it not live, but it was unspoiled. I have a video of me jumping and screaming for joy as Max Verstappen DNF'd. I thought, oh my god, this is the only time it's ever gonna happen. Finally, for the first time in fucking forever, Max Verstappen isn't going to win a race. And I'm a Carlos fan. So for Carlos to win that race, after he just got his appendix out, beautiful. So good. But for some reason, I don't know if it was, there was still a level of, well, Max only won because he DNF'd. So I wasn't quite there yet. Canada was also so fun. But that was one of the races where it's just ridiculous. It's not even necessarily great racing. You're like, this is just crazy with the rain, Charles's crazy strategy, all these weird things. That was fun. But Max Verstappen still won that race. And again, not the best racing, so can't be the best. I also want to give a shout out to Miami. That I think is when we all collectively realized, oh, something's happening here, that Max Verstappen is just finishing a race and not winning. Even though he did get messed up by a safety car, but like that and DNFing, like there's an element of luck to F1 you just can't ever erase. My absolute favorite race of the season that I have to go with is Silverstone. It was just, ugh, what a moment. And I'm also a Ferrari fan, so on a level I was excited for Lewis Hamilton to come to Ferrari in the first place. But you're always kind of like, well, he hasn't been doing so well. Mercedes hasn't been doing so well. Like, I don't know. So to see him win a race, first of all, gorgeous. I was like, okay, good. He still got it. After 2 seasons, like, I was getting worried. And to see him win in Silverstone of all places, like, yeah, that was written, like, in the stars. It had to happen. And the feeling of that perfectly encapsulated why I love F1. It was also an entertaining race. There was some real battles in there. Loved it. Like, I was screaming. My least favorite race, or the worst race, I have to go with the Bahrain race. Just not fun. I watched that and I thought, yeah, we're in for Max Verstappen dominance for another year. I was scared. I was like, let me cancel my F1 TV subscription. I'm not that serious. But I was concerned, and I double checked recently, and Max did win that race by 22 seconds with Checo second. So it literally felt like a race out of last year. I don't even have to go on that. If you're an F1 fan, you know, you felt the same. Okay, we're getting into the last category now of favorite and least favorite moment. My favorite moment of the year has to be the Lewis Hamilton to Ferrari announcement. What an experience that was. I feel like the day before there was some rumblings and I was like, yeah, whatever, it's off season, y'all are just bored and going crazy. And then because I'm in Toronto, everything happens 5 hours ahead or 5 hours behind. I don't know. But you know, everything operates on Europe and UK time. I woke up, I went to bed, and everything was fine. I wake up, I go on my phone, everybody's talking like it's real. And I was like, what are you on about? How are you all posting like it's real? This must just be a rumor. What are you on about? I see the Sky Sports accounts tweeting like it's real. I'm like, what are you on about? I remember I was like, no way, you're all crazy. And then I saw that Sky Sports was live outside of the Mercedes factory, and there was the meeting that they all said was going to happen, the emergency meeting, they all said that was going to happen, of Mercedes announcing to Mercedes that Lewis was leaving. And I was sitting on my desk over there doing my makeup, getting ready to go to school, and I was like, oh, yeah, I was glued to my phone all day. I was in class, so when the announcement came, I was like, well, it can't get bigger than that. It just literally can't get bigger than that. I felt revived. Because again, this was before the season started. I thought we were going to have another season of Max Verstappen dominance. I was excited for 2025. And my least favorite moment is connected. It is Carlos signing for Williams. This is personal to me because I am a Carlos fan and I'm a Ferrari fan. So like him leaving was upsetting enough, but I understand. Like, you're not going to get rid of Charles. You've built the whole project around Charles, and if Lewis Hamilton is interested, you're going to sign Lewis Hamilton. Like, you just can't argue with that. But it just sucks that Williams was the best option. That's what it comes down to, because we've talked about this, it couldn't be Sauber. Sauber is so bad. It's not worth it to wait it out for Audi, because who's even saying Audi is going to be good? I mean, he could, like, what, you're not going to go to Red Bull because you're like, well, Red Bull is still built around Max Verstappen. Like, everybody's going to be a second driver, and look how being the second driver has gone for everybody. It's not going to be McLaren because they have their 2 young drivers that are signed forever. it could have been Mercedes. It could have been a direct swap, but obviously Kimi Antonelli was going to go there. And even if Carlos could go there, would have only been for like a year. Like you want a long contract. And then who else? That leaves like nothing else good. Williams is a team that does seem to have direction forward. It seems James Vowles has started to understand what the problems with Williams are and is working towards fixing that. And I think having Carlos and his sponsorships will help Williams, and it's a good place for him to grow. Because like, who else could it have been? Like, not, it's never going to be Aston Martin. Like, why? Like, it's Fernando Alonso. He just re-signed for the rest of his life, and like it's Lance. Like, come on. Who does that leave? I'm literally blanking. Oh yeah, not AlphaTauri for obvious reasons. Still call it AlphaTauri. Apparently they're changing it. It's not going to be EV carb anymore. Like, pick. Just pick. Alpine. Oh, I literally had to look. I'm forgetting. Alpine, yeah, it was not going to be Alpine. And it could have been Alpine, but I'm happy it's not, because I don't know, weird vibes from Alpine. Part of me feels like they're preparing to sell. I mean, they're taking, is it Mercedes engines? So, and then Haas is, I view Haas as a baby team for, I view Haas as a baby team for Ferrari. Not that Williams isn't a baby team for like Mercedes, but maybe not anymore. I don't know. Like, in Haas is also not great. So like the Williams, well, do you know what? Actually, I'm changing my mind on that. Haas could have been a good signing. But I mean, I think, when did Carlos sign? Earlier in the season, before Haas started getting better, right? Because Haas has been performing pretty well. I'm actually excited to see how they go next year with Ollie and Esteban. Maybe that would have been nice. Oh. See that? Okay, but that's what I'm saying. Like, if your options are Haas and Williams, like, it just sucks to me that is the position that Carlos is in. I mean, okay, he is like the oldest on the grid besides, how old is Nico? I don't know. Nico must be older. So like Nico, Fernando, and Lewis. Like, okay, when you put it that way, like, okay, his career is coming to a slow end. Don't remind me, please. It feels to me like there's still some level of untapped potential for Carlos. Not necessarily that I think he would have been a driver's champion, but like, given a better car, maybe, like, given the right circumstances. But you could say that about anybody. I mean, if my mom had wheels, she would be a bike. That's just personal for me. That's a personal mourning I have to go through. I'm still clearly not processing my grief. Anyways, those were my least faves and faves, my best and worst for 2024. Let me know what yours are. Do all the categories below: driver, race, moment. And let me know what other topics you would like me to cover, what post 2024 and pre 2025 videos you like. Once we get into the season, I will be doing race reviews for IndyCar and F1. But let me know what you want. Want some predictions? I actually should do my predictions, because I did write down my predictions for this year and I haven't looked back at them. It's just probably Red Bull, Max Verstappen, everything. I will do my predictions for 2025 after testing. But you know what? Unfortunately, I'm not sure how much testing I'll be able to watch this year. Usually testing is during my reading week, so I just watch the afternoon session in my morning. But I have class that week this year. Anyways, thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode. Again, let me know what else you'd like me to do. I'm down to do anything. And please follow, subscribe, give thumbs up, comment, rate the podcast 5 stars, leave a review, all those very nice things. And I will chat with you very soon.